Friends, no city in America or Canada with a Jewish population as small as Memphis has a congregation as big as Temple Israel. I share that fact, not to boast, but to confess. To confess something I'm as guilty of overlooking as anyone who appreciates this temple. When your tent is as big as this synagogue, where our thousands of members have led just about every Jewish and Memphis institution, what sometimes gets lost in serving everyone are the simple core principles which ground us: inclusivity, equality, and repairing the other half of the circle, the world beyond these walls, not in word, but in deed. And it is Temple's commitment to these principles we forget about, an inclusive Judaism that leaves no one out, which explains why this weekend's special visit of Anat Hoffman to Memphis is so long overdue. Anat, a true lover of Israel, has devoted her life to religious rights for every Jew and human rights for every Israeli. Whenever groups visit Israel, American groups, she is asked to speak usually 4 times a week to groups, sometimes 8. She's a founder of Women of the Wall, the group of Israeli women who seek the right for Jewish women to do what Kayan will do so well tomorrow morning with her brother: a girl chant from a Torah scroll and sing out loud without being silenced, assaulted, or in Anat's case, thrown in jail. Tonight's speaker is the reason why Jews of all stripes are able to live like we do as Jews in Memphis, free to choose their own Jewish way. She is a leader of the Reform movement in Israel and a living legend. An article about her reads, here's the title: Women of the Wall may be the least of Anat Hoffman's achievements. If you Google Anat Hoffman and the Israel Religious Action Center, IRAC.org, you'll understand why Women of the Wall is just one of umpteen contributions. She has made Israel's internal survival her passion. She's a beacon of light for pluralism and equality for Jews all over the world, from Jerusalem to Memphis. Just one thought for you to think about tonight. A rabbinic friend once pointed out to me, you never know the name of the time period you're living through until someone decides that that period is over. The one thing they didn't have in the biblical period, for instance, was a Bible. Once they had a Bible, then the biblical period was over. It could have a name, and it was called the biblical period. But who knew when they were living through it? Nobody woke up in the late Roman Empire and said to their spouse, honey, you know, I was feeling late antiquity last night, but this morning it's definitely feeling like early medieval. God knows what historians will call the period of time we are living through right now. But it is clear in the 70th year of the state of Israel's existence that Anat Hoffman has been among the prime protectors of Israel's Declaration of Independence, ensuring civil and human rights to all of Israel's inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. She served as a Jerusalem City Councilwoman for 14 years and was known as a warrior for justice and equality, working to ensure that the powerful Orthodox bloc in the city council, a minority in Israel, 20-some-odd%, over 70% are not Orthodox. She worked to ensure that while you have your right to be whatever you want to be, you can't dictate lifestyle choices for the rest of the population who are not you. She's fought for women's equal pay for equal work. She has fought to guarantee basic municipal services for Palestinian residents of Jerusalem. She remains a familiar figure in the Supreme Court and the Knesset. And she's fighting for a compassionate Judaism, not a coercive one. The religious coercion that a lot of us gloss over and which tourists and transplants to Israel rarely see. By the way, this Jerusalem native was an Israeli swimming champion in her teens. After Army service, she went to UCLA, graduated from UCLA, pursued graduate studies outside Tel Aviv at Bar Ilan. I'm not going to read you all the boards of civil rights organizations and associations. I'm just going to tell you two more things. Her address tonight is entitled, Israel at 70, What We Don't Talk About When We Focus Only on Israel's Necessary Security. Dearest Anat, I know it's 3 in the morning in Jerusalem, you just flew in, but here in the soul of the civil rights movement, in one of the founding congregations of the Reform movement, we thank you for traveling here from Jerusalem. You are a true champion and exemplar of Jewish values, a role model and hero for every Jew committed to equality, and you are the Jewish leader and thinker I admire as much, if not more, than any leader in the Jewish world, male or female. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your Memphis love for the renowned Israeli Jewish civil human rights leader, Anat Hoffman. Yeah, this works. Is it okay? Oh.
You hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I only know Bedouins who talk about tents and American rabbis. So, Israel is a phenomenal success. You all know it. 70 years, and we've accomplished more than any other country who is 70 years old. I think the biggest achievement of the Zionist state is the Hebrew language. Sadly, many of you had it rammed down your throats when you were learning for your bar mitzvah. But it is a beautiful language. I dare say it is wiser than those who speak it. Can you hear me? Okay. There are some marvelous inventions in Israel. Every cellular phone here has an invention from Israel. We invented the drip irrigation. I guess only the Jews would make a leaky faucet into a world industry. We solved the issue of how to find the kiddush when you're doing the motzi. This is a gift to your synagogue. Look at that. The kiddush is on the challah cover. So this is for you, Rabbi. Nifty. I'm not here to tell you about Israel's successes. For that, you have the Israeli Consul General in Atlanta coming here. I want to talk about some of Israel's internal difficulties. I'm a wart doctor, and I will talk about Israel's warts. It's interesting because I'm doing something about it. Our movement, the Reform movement, is doing something about it. The Israel Religious Action Center is the political and legal arm of our movement in Israel. We are 30 employees. Most of us are lawyers. We sue the state of Israel about 60 times a year. That's more than once a week. Don't call us, we'll sue you. And we're doing very well. We're the only religious stream in Israel that actually has a human rights device that's dealing with way beyond their own pupik. Every religious stream has a lawyer to deal with a leaky roof, with a contract with a rabbi or a minister. But we're the only ones who actually deal with every issue that deals with human rights that has some religious background to it. We are the ones who represented all of world Jewry in the issue of conversion. All the conversions done abroad, done in America, done here, are recognized in Israel for purposes of aliyah. If anyone tells you differently, they're lying. We actually won the case. If you converted here, Reform or conservative, and you come to Israel, you will become an Israeli citizen immediately. And if not, we have a legal aid center for new immigrants. Make our day and show up. We will win for you. We haven't won recognition for the conversions done in Israel by Israeli rabbis. And the reason we didn't is because the Hebrew Union College itself, where your rabbi went to school, and thousands of his American Reform conservative rabbis went to the Jewish Theological Seminary or the Hebrew Union College. These institutions are not recognized in the state of Israel as institutions of Jewish learning. Chutzpah. Every educational institution in the world recognizes the Hebrew Union College. The Pope recognizes the Hebrew Union College. But your rabbi, who performed so many weddings, so many funerals, so many bar mitzvahs, so many brises, you name it, is not considered a rabbi in the state of Israel. No graduate of the Hebrew Union College of any color, decree, or belief is recognized in Israel as a rabbi. Why is that continuing? First, Israelis don't know better. Israelis don't know about the Hebrew Union College. Are there any Israelis here now? Not even a one? Who? You are? How come you're here? A miracle. Do your parents know? Israelis don't know any better, and you tell me the truth. Did you know any better before you showed up here? Did you know about Reform Judaism? Did you know about Reform? You didn't. So Israelis don't know any better, so they're not fighting for Reform conservative rabbis yet. More and more Israelis are finding out. In a recent poll, 10% of Israelis said that they are Reform or conservative. 10%. We're getting there. 10% is a critical mass. It's an important number. It's 250,000 people. But the second thing is, you're awfully quiet. The fact that your rabbi is not recognized in Israel as a rabbi, you somehow accept it. You have such good manners. You're so polite. There's such amazing nuisance value in this room that is completely untapped. This is why I schlepped to Memphis. I want you to get a license, a kashrut certificate, a kick in the butt. I am begging you, do something. First, sign up to my newsletter. I will get you petitions to write, letters to Netanyahu. And if push comes to shove, I would ask you to travel to the next Israeli consulate and protest outside the consulate. It is time we made our desires known. Some of you say, I don't have a right to interfere in Israel's internal affairs. Who am I and what am I? I don't send my children to the army. I don't pay taxes in Israel. I don't believe in one country interfering in the internal affairs of another. And for many years you were quiet because you believed these things. So let me explain them one by one. The first, not interfering in the issues of another country. Israel is the only Jewish country on the planet, right? The only Jewish state. If we're discussing what are the Jewish values of the Jewish state, do you have a say in that? Do you know something about Jewish values? Can you not sit around a table where Jewish values are discussed? Of course you can, and you should. And it's your right. No, it's your goddamn duty. You have to do it. About how many Israelis send their children to the army? Do you know what percentage? Yes, 50%, ladies. 50% send to the army and 50 don't. Do you think those who don't send to the army are not saying what they think should happen in Israel? The fact that you don't send your children to the army should not silence you on the question whether your rabbi is a rabbi in Israel. Why? It shouldn't silence you whether women should get arrested for wearing a talit at the wall. It has nothing to do one with the other. And as for paying taxes, Israel is one of the world's champion in tax evasion. Israelis discuss it all the time, how we can possibly evade taxes. It has nothing to do with the question of what are the Jewish values of the Jewish state? Chauvinism, ethnocentrism, racism, or tolerance, equality, and pluralism? What are the values of the Jewish state? Can't you say what you think? You should. I'm inviting you. I'm representing, I would say, 250,000 Israelis who are saying, please get involved. If you stay asleep or quiet or dormant or indifferent, You will wake up one day and see an Israel that you will be ashamed of. It will reflect on you. Besides, the lame product we call Judaism in Israel, we may export it over to you. You don't want that. You know that Israel exports many wonderful things abroad, among them the Hebrew language. But maybe I should say that all the wonderful things we invent, one of the things we're very bankrupt is Judaism. I know you think that Israel is the Club Med of the Jewish soul, the Disneyland of the Jews. We have less creativity in our Jewish experience in Israel because we have one monopoly over all religious services. Only Orthodox religious services are recognized in Israel. Did you know that? Only Orthodox weddings, only Orthodox divorce, only Orthodox funeral, only Orthodox kashrut, only Orthodox conversion. You're getting the point? And only an Orthodox prayer at the wall. I'm holding here the agreement. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Wall Agreement. The Western Wall. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so this is it. We worked on this for 4 years. I have a parking spot at the Prime Minister's office. We sat there and argued every page. And I'm going to read you the 3 lines why this agreement has been disregarded by the government. Local custom at the new plaza will be based on the principles of pluralism and gender equality, and worship will be egalitarian with men and women praying together. That's it. Pluralism and gender equality. It's the first time these words are written in any official Israeli document. Is it worth fighting for? Yes. Absolutely. Is it worth sitting in jail for? Of course. Is it worth for you to say what you think? Absolutely. Okay. I'm wearing the Women of the Wall talit. It has the 4 mothers on all 4 corners. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Could you hand me it comes with a bag. Inside the bag there is a kippah. You think I'm a social activist. I'm a shmata salesperson. It comes with a kippah, very nice one. And it so happens that I have them for sale. And Women of the Wall get half of the proceeds. And this is one way that the Women of the Wall are changing the world. Yes, I did go to jail for wearing one of those talitot. The exact regulation I broke for the bride and groom is performing a religious act contrary to local custom, which offends the feelings of others. Wearing a talit, saying Shema Yisrael, putting on phylacteries, reading Torah. These are all religious acts contrary to local custom which offend the feelings of others and punishable by 6 months imprisonment. What's wrong with this regulation? Who decides what's local custom? Who decides what offends the feelings of others? What's going on over there? It's time for you to kick ass. So, I wanted to share with you my day in Memphis just a little bit because this was a visit to be remembered. First, I love this southern drawl. People speak like they're tasting something, and they're not spitting the words out like in the north, but more enjoying it like molasses, very slow. And your rabbi, who is a force of nature, has taken me to the National Civil Rights Museum. You should be ashamed of yourself if you have not visited there. I know that sometimes the tourists see more than locals. It is marvelous, and it chronicles a terrible period of injustice and violence in this city. And I asked him, how can you love a place so imperfect? I am asking him because I'm asked about Israel often. How can you love a place so imperfect? So first, as someone who's been married many years, I believe that love is what remains after you know the truth. And this museum certainly tells the truth about Memphis. The second thing, I think the past has already done here its worst. Its worst. It can't be as bad as it was in the past here in Memphis. This museum shows you the power of one, what one person can do. That's true for Israel as well. It looks at each of us has a role, and each of us can play it and should play it. It gives meaning to our life. It showed me that Memphis has holy places, and I'm not talking about Graceland. And I'm very sensitive to holy places. There is a place in the Lorraine Motel that qualifies as a holy place. And then we stood in front of the Mississippi, and we blessed Baruch Atah Adonai, HaMechadesh Betuvo Midei Yom Maaseh Bereshit, how you recreate the creation every day. I'm amazed that people who lived by the Mississippi longed for the little sewage canal called the Jordan. Amazing. You can hop over the Jordan, and the Mississippi is really old man river, and I thank you for allowing me to see it. You might ask me, how come a small minority of ultra-Orthodox people dictate life choices for the rest of Israel? The ultra-Orthodox are only 10% of Israel's population. When the rabbi said 20%, he added to them all traditional and Orthodox people. But the ultra-Orthodox are only 6 members of the cabinet today, and they are dictating life choices for the rest of us. How could this happen? You know how? When there was the Sandy Hook massacre, I live in Israel, I live in Jerusalem, I thought this can't be worse. They killed primary school kids, babies. And I thought, at least one thing will happen now. The Americans are going to change their gun control laws. It must happen now. They killed babies there. And I read a poll that over 70% of Americans want to change the gun control laws. And then it comes to Senate, and it doesn't pass. And I ask you, what could be stronger than 70% of you, 80% of you? And you tell me that a well-funded, grounded and centered lobby in Washington is stronger than all of you. Keep that in mind when you ask me how 10% of the population can dictate life choices for the rest of us. The coalition in Israel, the almighty Netanyahu, he has only 30 of 120 seats in the Knesset. He must have a coalition. And the easiest ones are the ultra-Orthodox. And he can get away with giving them so much power, mainly because many Israelis are quiet and because you are quiet. Wake up. You are a sleeping giant. I'm giving you a license. You should be much more informed, and you can be a player. You are sitting in Hadassah, at the American Jewish Congress, in AIPAC, in J Street. You are sitting in all these organizations. It's time you said to the leaders of your organizations, you should demand from Israel recognition of our rabbis, of our institutions, of the fact that there's more than one way to be Jewish. You can't wring your hands and roll up your sleeves at the same time. It's a physical impossibility. I suggest you roll up your sleeves. Israel is way more important than to just leave it with the Israelis. Way too important. Let's together make Israel a place we can be proud of. Venomar, amen. Thank you.